In this video, we take a quick overview of the NCAA and how it's changed over time. So let's first take a look at the history of the NCAA, or a brief one. So as college football became more popular in the second half of the 19th century, students formed these sports clubs that were independent of administration. All right, so they were more club type sports as they are now with, for example, ultimate frisbee in a lot of colleges and some other club sports, flag football, for example. Now, most administrators did not like this, and different colleges had different rules. But the problem was the cost of negotiating these rules. It became difficult to enforce them. Now, with a lot of this going on, the clubs did not have the support of the universities, and then because of a lot of this, it was 1905, there were 18 students that were killed during these football games, and 159 suffered some pretty serious injuries. So the president at that time, Theodore Roosevelt, warned the representatives of a lot of the Ivy League schools, which had the larger and better football programs at the time, Harvard, Yale, and Princeton, that they had to regulate the game or it was going to be outlawed. And so in response to this, 13 colleges met to adopt a singular set of rules and to establish an enforcement mechanism. Now, within a year of that, what was known as the Intercollegiate Athletic Association of the United States was formed to establish the common set of rules. This was later, in 1910, renamed to what we know today as the National Collegiate Athletic Association, right, NCAA. Now, for many years, the NCAA was primarily concerned with standardizing the rules in football and in other collegiate sports. But they later passed numerous resolutions intended to discourage the professionalism of college sports. Right? And by that, I mean finding ways for players to get paid. So they would be going and they would be students and they could not sell their rights to make money. Now, these rules often conflicted with the individual teams intended to produce wins. Right? And because of this, there was the different schools went about it, and basically what happened was the NCAA, the organization that oversaw it, was able to gain more power. And so over the years, they became more powerful, and they were able to have more control over the teams and the students and the football league as a whole. So now let's just look at the structure of the NCAA. Initially, there was just one NCAA, and that was all the college teams that played. Right. There were, however, some changes to the structure. So the NCAA has continuously redefined the athletics by dividing the schools into small, more homogeneous groups. And in 1973, it went from one league of equal partners to 3. And so you had divisions 1, 2, and 3, which still exists. The main distinction between these were the rules that govern the recruiting and financial aid. Division 3 tends to be more small private schools that don't offer scholarships. Division 2 is more private colleges and smaller universities that offer some athletic scholarships. and Division I is the big-time football powerhouses that offer numerous scholarships, or they all offer scholarships. And so, as can be expected, because of that, you had the better quality players going to Division I and II school and not much to Division III. Now, in 1978, under pressure from the largest Division I football powerhouses, the Division I was split into two separate divisions. One was Division 1A, which was later renamed the FBS, the Football Bowl Subdivision, and 1AA, which is known as the Football Championship Subdivision. Now, the distinction is only for football, however. Okay, so this 1A and 1AA only occurs in football and not the other sports. Now, participation in the college football playoff and the most lucrative games is dominated by Power 5 conferences. The ACC, the Atlantic Coast Conference, the Big 12, the Big 10, the Pacific 12, and the SEC, the Southeastern Conference. And so most of these championship games are played with teams in these divisions. Now, there are other Division I schools, with the exception of Notre Dame, which I'll explain in a second, that must scramble for what is left over. Okay, so there's a few other bowl games and championship games, and these teams get a very small piece of that pie. Now, Notre Dame is a big-time college football program. However, they're not in any specific conference. Okay. Notre Dame also has exclusive deals with NBC to have all their games on TV. There's the Prestige University. And so even though Notre Dame is not in these large conferences, they are still able to compete with them for players. And so they're a lot of times in the mix for one of the best football programs in the nation. So this is just a brief overview of the NCAA.